I am not on video at the moment because I don't have the right lighting in my office. I actually had relocated the ring light because we were working on a client launch, and it's not back in my office yet. It hasn't made it back in there. So I am going to be off video for this show, but hopefully you can hear me okay. I've got the microphone on, it's lit up, and it seems to be working. If anybody's listening, please give me a thumbs up or say hi so that I know that you can hear me. So today is Truth Tuesday. This is so important because finding your truth and identifying your truth, it's not just a statement, it's not just a thing to do, but truly is it it truly is a continuous process. Finding your truth is a continuous process. I started discovering a few years back that some of my biggest lessons came from not just disappointments, but also just, taking a step back or step aside and, really looking to see, what is it? What is it that is at a core level for me? You know, I'll give you an example, and I'm sharing this example because, I it's it's Tuesday, and as I said, I like to think of Tuesdays as Truth Tuesdays. It's a day when I like to, reflect on one of my biggest lessons. And then I like to share that lesson in hopes that other people will possibly identify with it, possibly make some realizations, or be inspired and decide that they are going to find, their truths, like what's at the core of them. Now, the example that I want to share with you today has to do with people pleasing. All right. Now, I would love to know if anyone can relate to people pleasing behaviors. I was a people pleaser for decades, decades, and I couldn't help myself. Like, I would love to know if you can relate, if you are a people pleaser or if you have been a people pleaser. I really couldn't. I couldn't help myself. I would say yes when I really should have said no. And when I realized this truth, it was mm, I'm okay, I'm going to say I'm pretty sure that it was 2014. But I'm going to say it was either 2014 or 2015, because my son was an altar server, and what happened was the church, who I'm very involved with. I go to a local Catholic church. I've been a member at the same Catholic church for almost 24 years. It's a Catholic church, like I said, in the area that I live in, Plainfield, Illinois. So, anyways, they were looking for an altar server coordinator. Okay, I knew they were looking for an altar server coordinator. And at that time, I was running my caregiving company. I had just started my executive coaching, really just started it, and had, really no clear direction because I was, trying to juggle the schedules along with my children's schedules. All right. So, what happened was I didn't raise my hand. I mean, thank God I was able to stop myself from that. But they approached me one of the directors there, and had mentioned that, the pastor would really appreciate it if I would consider doing that. What happened was the current altar server director was, she was going to be moving on. She had some other responsibilities, and she would have been a really tough act to follow because she was just so amazing. She had everything coordinated. Anyways, so because they personally approached me and it was a call to action, I was actually going to do it. I was actually going to do it when I knew that I wasn't supposed to do it. I really didn't have the time to do it. And it was going to be one of those things that if I would have done it, my business and maybe even my children would have been impacted, but definitely my business, because I was at the point, I was 6-7 years in my business, and I was still at the point where I needed to make sure that I was focusing on revenue producing activities, because in the healthcare business, of course, we would admit patients, and then patients would be discharged sometimes because they got better, sometimes because they passed away. It was all out of our control. So that meant that I needed to focus on continuous revenue producing activities, building relationships, making sure that my clients were taken care of. And yes, I had a full staff of caregivers, and I also had administration help, but it still involved a lot of focus from me. Well, one of my best friends, heard that I was thinking about taking it. I'm quite sure I told her, "Oh, I feel like I'm going to have to do it because, Father, the pastor, had said he'd really like me to do it." And I talked to the former director, and if it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for my best friend really asking me, like, first of all, being shocked, because not that it's not a good thing to do, it's a wonderful thing to do, but I had no business even thinking about it because I needed to focus on my business. I was just, recently unmarried, divorced, whatever you want to call it. So I was, trying to get used to the whole single parent thing. Absolutely no business doing it. If it wasn't for Marianne, I probably would have done it. But she talked me through it, and it made me realize that no, I can't do it. I would love to do it, so I respectfully declined, and I felt good about it. That was the pivotal point when I realized that I truly was a people pleaser. Like, I suspected I was before, but then you know how you learn, oh, you need to say no more than you say yes. Okay. Well, I'd get good at that, and I'd ramp up, and then I'd fall back. And then I would get really good again, and I'd ramp up, and then I'd slide down. It was kind of like a video that I saw yesterday. One of my colleagues posted this video, and perhaps you've seen it. It's a mama bear is climbing up, a snowy hill, mountain, actually. And she makes it to the top, and she's, just patiently waiting for her little cub. And the cub, would get, halfway up and then slide down, and then get three-fourths of the way up. It slid all the way down to the starting point. But then when the cubs started going that time, it was probably like the third time's a charm, uh, he made it all the way to the top. So I share that analogy with you because if it wasn't for the conversation I had with Marianne, who, really allowed me to see that I needed to take a couple steps back. But even though we realize our truths, and we're able to work through those and do things a new way, right? Because that's one of the biggest discoveries that I found with myself as well as my clients that uh, we, if we know that we have a constraint or something's not working, then we need to determine what that is or what that could be, stop doing that and do something else. And that's not always easy to do. But even when you do overcome that obstacle, that constraint, just know that sometimes it pops up again. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's just that, maybe it's our brains that are trying to protect us. Maybe it's just habits that even though we, make a new decision, we have new habits, sometimes we might retreat back into that. And the people pleasing is, I believe, I believe the root cause of why people say yes when they should be saying no. I can only speak my truth, and that is my truth. I would love to know if you can relate, if you have something similar, because, just merely saying, okay, well, we should say no more than yes. That is a great tip. However, if we don't really understand what that means to us, I don't know that it's going to help us in any way. So it wasn't until I understood, like I said, what was the core, what was the root cause of why did I feel so pressured? Why couldn't I help myself? Like I literally couldn't help myself. It was ridiculous. I just felt like, oh yeah, well, they asked me, well, they really want me to do it. I better do it. I would have lost revenue because of that. Not because I didn't want to, but just because at that point I could not. It would not have been a wise decision. It really could have jeopardized, the well-being of my kids, fluctuations with revenue as it was, because we would, a patient would get better or a patient would pass away. All of those things, teeter-tottering. Okay. Some of you can relate to that. So I encourage you that, if you find yourself saying yes when you should be saying no, do some self-reflection. I know that's kind of like a vague term, but just maybe take a step back or take a step to the side and, think like, what is it that makes you feel like you have to say yes? And then, go there's an exercise that is done a lot in our coaching industry, and it's called the 7 layers deep exercise. you know it's very helpful no matter whatever you're trying to identify, whatever you're trying to get a clear picture of. Okay. And let's just say I ask myself, well, why do I say yes when I should be saying no? And try to get like a specific example, like this, this volunteer position at the church. And I would say, well, because that's the first degree. The first degree is because the current director had asked me. The second was because the pastor really wanted me to do it. The third one, probably, this was several years ago, so I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. But, the third one, my son would be proud of me. The fourth one, my daughter may decide that she wants to be an altar server. Okay, so you get the idea. I've just given you 4 degrees. There definitely are 3 more. But do that exercise with yourself. If, like, for instance, you find yourself saying yes more than you should be saying. Okay. Now, you do need to protect your time. So there is nothing wrong with saying no more than yes. You have to do that. However, you really need to get to the point. Like if you have a behavior like I did, where I couldn't help myself, and it really could have jeopardized it really would have, jeopardized our well-being. I had no business doing that. I had to focus on building my businesses. But go 7 layers deep, ask yourself 7 questions, and you will get to the root cause. And in my case, the root cause was people pleasing. Every now and then it rears its head again. So I have to remind myself, and it's usually that behavior, saying yes when I should be saying no. I have to remind myself, why am I thinking that I should say yes? Nobody is going to protect your time, protect your, your time, your boundaries, your business, your children, your family. No one is going to protect those like you will. So make sure that you are not so caught up in the moment, and oh well, I'll just go ahead and do it, which is like the example that I gave you. Well, I felt like I really needed to, because they wanted me to, because I wanted to be accepted, because I wanted to please people. Stop doing that. Because at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, what do we want people to remember us by? I don't want people to remember me by being a people pleaser. That's not what I want. I do not want that as a legacy. I don't know if any of you remember this or have heard of this, but there's a very impactful author, and I can't think of her last name at the moment, but she wrote The Dash, okay, and it impacted my life in such a wonderful way, because it was at a time I learned about her. I learned about the Dash when my dad was sick, and to me, he was everything to me. He was everything to a lot of people. Okay, and the thing is that the author of the Dash speaks of the fact that uh, you know we should really focus on the times, the times between that dash, right? The times between that dash, and the name of the author, last name Ellis, yes, Linda Ellis. So the dash, like I said, was such an impactful poem, and the reason why that came to my mind is because if we do not want to be people pleasers, we need to maximize that time between the dash, between when we were born and between, until we pass away. And I'm just going to read the last 2 paragraphs, and then we'll wrap up, okay? Last 2 verses. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering this special dash might only last a little while. So, when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? Remember that. Linda Ellis impacted my life, as well as she impacted so many other, I'm sure, millions of people. I do not want to be remembered as a people pleaser. So, when you catch yourself in behaviors, like I said, that are less than favorable, you don't have to overanalyze them, of course, because we don't want to dwell. However, what I recommend you do is, like I said, take a step back, take a step to the side, do the 7 layers deep exercise. That's something that you can just take a blank sheet of paper on. I mean, I like to write it down. You could do it on your phone, but take a blank sheet of paper with your pen, your favorite pen, and just ask yourself, why am I doing that? Or why did I do that? How did I feel when I do that? You will be so amazed when you get down, 7 layers deep. So that's just asking yourself the same questions, you know, how did I feel? Why did I do that? Why do I feel that I want my son to be proud of me? Those kinds of things. Ask yourself those 7 questions, and then you will get to your truth. And then it's about making a commitment to yourself. What are you going to decide to do about that? Maybe you have to have a new behavioral plan, you know. Maybe you have to put some incentives out there for yourself, dangle some carrots so that you can stick to this new behavioral plan. Nobody's going to do it for you. So I'm going to ask you, what's your truth today that you're realizing? And are you committed to asking yourself some questions so you can get to the bottom of it? Let me know in the comments. Have a great day, everyone. I will see everyone soon and talk with everyone soon. But definitely hit me up in the DMs or post some comments. Let me know if you can relate to the whole people pleasing behavior. Take care, everyone.